In this video, we are going to discuss about the liver diseases in pregnancy. So if you see the liver in pregnancy, the size of the liver is unchanged. And coming to different enzymes in the liver, the enzymes of the liver, all of the enzymes are decreased. So all enzymes in the liver are decreased except one enzyme, that is alkaline phosphatase. So why alkaline phosphatase is not decreased but all the enzymes are decreased? Because alkaline phosphatase is not only produced by liver but also it is produced by placenta, and especially the placenta form the heat stable alkaline phosphatase. So that is the speciality of this alkaline phosphatase. So now let us move on to disease of pregnancy, that is the cholestasis of pregnancy. So first we need to understand what is cholestasis. Cholestasis is the obstruction to the bile flow. So you know that the bile is flowing from the liver, so if the bile is obstructed in the case of pregnancy, that is called as cholestasis in pregnancy. So what happens here? This disease is also called as recurrent jaundice in pregnancy, recurrent jaundice, and it is also called as icterus gravidum. So icterus gravidum is seen in pregnancy, and this is most common cause of liver disease in pregnancy. This is the second most common cause of jaundice in pregnancy, and this cholestasis is seen in the third trimester. The specular feature of this is there are pruritus, that is itching in the soles and palm. So whenever a patient comes in the third trimester with the itching in the soles and palm, it's confirmed that it's cholestasis. It is a recurrent jaundice, also called as icterus gravidum, and this is the second most common cause of jaundice in pregnancy. Now coming to another thing, so what is the main cause here? As we discussed, there is decreased bile flow and there is accumulation of bile acid. So bile acids are accumulated, and the most common symptom we discussed, that is pruritus. Next, coming to investigation. So how to investigate this? Because not only cholestasis, acute fatty liver in pregnancy, all these conditions, and also HELLP syndrome in pregnancy, all these three are going to take place in the same third trimester. So how to differentiate between these diseases? So first investigation which we see in cholestasis is increase in bile acids. Increase in bile acids is the most specular best feature investigation. Of course alkaline phosphatase will also increase, but alkaline phosphatase, you can see it is normally increase in normal during pregnancy, so it is not a specular feature for cholestasis. Next, coming to SGOT. These are some enzymes. SGOT and SGPT are the enzymes which are released in the case of liver failure in pregnancy. So these are also increased, but only slightly increased, that is less than 250 international units per liter. And next, coming to bilirubin. Bilirubin is also increased, but not that much. It is increased only up to 4 to 5%, 5 grams per cent. Next, coming to drug of choice. So what is the drug of choice for this cholestasis in pregnancy? We need to use ursodeoxycholic acid. So this is the drug of choice for cholestasis in pregnancy. So now, what is the fetal complication? What happens to the baby inside in this case of liver disease? There is meconium aspiration syndrome in fetus. So in fetus, there is meconium aspiration syndrome, and also there is fetal distress. Why fetal distress? Because you can understand, because of meconium aspiration the fetus will get distressed, and this will lead to intrauterine death of the fetus. Okay, this will also lead to intrauterine death of fetus. So it's better to terminate this kind of pregnancy within 37 to 38 weeks, because it is leading to fetal distress, meconium aspiration syndrome and intrauterine death. So it's better to terminate this in 37 to 38 weeks. So now let us discuss about acute fatty liver. So acute fatty liver, it is also called as yellow necrosis. yellow necrosis of liver, like because acute fatty liver, it will turn like yellowish color. It is also called yellow necrosis of liver, and this is the most common cause of liver failure in pregnancy. So it's the first most common cause of liver failure in pregnancy. Okay, and actually what is the problem here? Here in acute fatty liver, the long chain hydroxyacyl dehydrogenase enzyme, in short you can write LCHAD. This enzyme is lacking in especially male fetus. So in male fetus, if hydroxyacyl dehydrogenase enzyme is not present in male fetus, this will in turn lead to accumulation of long chain fatty acids in mother. So in fetus there is no long chain hydroxyacyl dehydrogenase enzyme, and this in turn is leading to accumulation of long chain fatty acids in the mother. So because of this, in the mother there is acute fatty liver. Okay, so what are the risk factors for this acute fatty liver? The first one is male fetus, because if the fetus male which is not having this LCHAD, then this is a risk factor. And twin pregnancy is also a risk factor. And preeclampsia means very hypertension in the pregnancy, that is preeclampsia. And any previous history, if the patient is having any previous history of acute liver failure or acute fatty liver, okay, in pregnancy. So these are the risk factors. So what happens actually in this acute fatty liver liver injury? What happens is mainly hypoglycemia. Why hypoglycemia? Because the liver is it's important for gluconeogenesis. If there is no process of gluconeogenesis, then actually the insulin is increased in the blood. If the insulin is increased in the blood, you can understand that more of the glucose is sent into the tissues, so in the blood there will be hypoglycemia. And also there will be ammonium accumulation. Why ammonium accumulation? Because liver is important to clear the ammonium, so there will be ammonium accumulation, and this in turn will lead to encephalopathy. And next, coming to, if you see the liver failure test will be abnormal because this is a acute fatty liver. And coagulation failure, because liver forms most of the coagulation proteins, so the coagulation will also decrease in the case of acute fatty liver. So now coming to capillary endothelial dysfunction. What happens to the capillaries? Capillary endothelium, it's a lining of the capillary. So what happens if this capillary endothelium will undergo dysfunction? This will lead to third space accumulation, that is in the interstitial space, because when capillaries are obstructed, most of their fluid content will come out, and in the blood now only the blood contents, the cells will remain, and that will lead to hemoconcentration inside the vessels, and outside there will be accumulation leading to ascites or pulmonary edema. So in hemoconcentration, what are the chances? Hemoconcentration may lead to hepatorenal syndrome, because because of hemoconcentration to the renal supply, the blood which is going to the kidneys will be low, and that will lead to decreased GFR and even renal failure, right? So this is hepatorenal syndrome. And DIC, disseminated intravascular, that one, DIC. And also uteroplacental deficiency. The other problem is DIC and uteroplacental deficiency, means here the flow between the mother and child is also not good, that is blood flow, so it will lead to fetal death. FD means fetal death. Okay, now let us differentiate between the HELLP syndrome, acute fatty liver in pregnancy, cholestasis in pregnancy. So one thing you need to remember there, that these three diseases are going to be seen in a pregnant female in the third trimester. Okay, and the clinical features which you see in the HELLP syndrome is there's increased blood pressure, like about in 85% of patients you will see the blood pressure is increased in the case of HELLP syndrome. And in acute fatty liver, the BP may be increased but only in 50%. So if you see the increase of blood pressure is more in 85% of people in HELLP syndrome, But here in acute fatty liver also increase, but only in 50% of patients. Okay. So because of this, as the blood pressure is increasing, you will see some other features associated in acute fatty liver like hypoglycemia. Why we know? Because there is more insulin production, and coagulopathy, because you know already the liver produce most of the coagulation protein, encephalopathy, and also hepatorenal syndrome. So this already we discussed in the acute fatty liver, right? So along with this blood pressure, these features you will see in AFLP. Next, coming to cholestasis, the important factor you see clinical feature is pruritus, right? Itching in the soles and legs, soles and palms. Okay. So what is another complication which you see in AFLP? There is one complication, that is especially in recovery phase. In recovery phase, you will see pancreatitis and diabetes insipidus. So this is very important. In recovery phase of acute fatty liver, the patient have a chance to get pancreatitis and also diabetes insipidus. So now we'll discuss the lab findings. So in the lab findings, especially in the HELP syndrome, if you see the lab findings, they are like hemolysis. So here HELP, HELP. Here H means hemolysis. That is, you can understand hemolysis. Schistocytes or helminth cells are seen in peripheral sphere. So what you see, schistocytes, or also they're called as helminth cells. They are seen in peripheral smear. And indirect bilirubin is increased. Okay, bilirubin is increased, but indirect, not direct. Okay, indirect bilirubin is increased. LDH is also increased, or low hepatoglobulin levels. Increase LDH, low haptoglobin levels. So these are the features you see in HELP syndrome. So any two findings to be present to confirm hemolysis. So any two findings, either schistocytes you can see, or you can see direct bilirubin, or you can see low haptoglobulin level. So among this, if you see any two, it is confirmed that it is hemolysis. And next one you see is E stands for, here H completed hemolysis, E stands for elevated liver enzymes. So liver enzymes are elevated. If you remember, normally in the beginning of liver disease we have discussed that the liver enzymes all are decreased except alkaline phosphatase, but in HELP syndrome the liver enzymes are elevated greater than 2 times than normal. Okay, and another HEL here refers to low platelets. The platelets are dropped, like the platelets are dropped less than 1 lakh. Okay, and coagulation profile is normal in HELP syndrome. That is important. The coagulation is normal here. But if you remember, in acute fatty liver, the coagulation, there is coagulopathy, right? So you can differentiate between HELP and AFLP one in this point. So now this is about HELP syndrome. Now let us see about the acute fatty liver of pregnancy. So in acute fatty liver of pregnancy, all the liver enzymes are raised 5 to 10 times. So here the liver enzymes are raised only 2 times, but here the liver enzymes are raised 5 times, 5 to 10 times. Okay, and there is also increased bilirubin, both direct and indirect. Here only indirect, right? So here both direct and indirect bilirubin is increased in the case of acute fatty liver, and increase ammonia because liver is failed here. Okay, and hypoglycemia we already know, and abnormal coagulation pathway we already discussed. Now coming to cholestasis. In cholestasis also bile acids are increased, already we know, because the cholestasis in the word itself, there is blocking of bile flow, and direct bilirubin is raised here. So in HELP syndrome, indirect bilirubin is raised. In acute fatty liver, both direct, indirect. In cholestasis, direct bilirubin is raised. And here SGOT and SGPT are also raised, greater than, so less than 250 international units. So what is the management and treatment for all these three symptoms? Now let us see. So the management of HELP syndrome is, we should give prophylactic magnesium sulfate and antihypertensives. Okay, and the management of AFLP is supportive care with low protein and high carbohydrate diet, and low fat diet. Okay, low protein and low fat should be given, high carbohydrate should be given, because there is hypoglycemia in the acute fatty liver. In cholestasis, the management is already we discussed urodeoxycholic acid. Coming to the treatment of HELLP syndrome is immediate termination of pregnancy if less than 34 weeks. Give steroid and terminate after 48 hours. So we need to immediately terminate. If the fetus is less than 34 weeks, then we need to give the give the steroids and corticosteroids and wait till 48 hours and finally terminate. So whatever we need to terminate here. So here the treatment is also immediate termination even if less than. So here even less than 34, immediate termination here. Okay. And cholestasis, termination only after 37 weeks. Only after 37 week termination in cholestasis. So remember that recurrence rate. In HELLP syndrome, the recurrence rate is 4 to 7%. In cholestasis, the recurrence rate is 60 to 70%. So cholestasis may again come. So after 37 weeks, it is better to terminate the fetus. So finally, another disease of liver disease of pregnancy is viral hepatitis. The final disease, viral hepatitis. So the most common cause of jaundice in pregnancy is the viral hepatitis. Okay, the most common hepatitis is hepatitis B in pregnancy. Okay, the most common fulminant hepatitis. Fulminant is hepatitis E. Okay, most common is B. Fulminant is hepatitis E. Maximum maternal mortality is seen by hepatitis E. Mortality by hepatitis E. And hepatitis B, C, D can cross the BCD, can cross placenta. Okay. Especially hepatitis B vaccine is safe in pregnancy. We already discussed this one. Clinical features of this are the patient here have fever. So this fever is not seen either in HELLP syndrome or acute fatty liver or cholestasis, but in viral hepatitis you will observe fever, and also there is nausea, vomiting in any trimester. That is important, any trimester. But if you see these three all are going on in third trimester, this is seen in any trimester. Here the investigations are all the liver enzymes are raised 20 times. Liver enzymes are raised 20 times. Here only 2 times, here only 5 times, but here 20 times. So if the hepatitis B surface antigen is positive, the chances of vertical transmission, that is from the mother to the baby, is 10 to 20%. Okay. And if hepatitis E surface antigen is positive, then the vertical transmission is like 90%. So that's why we said the most fulminant hepatitis, that means the most transmissible hepatitis is hepatitis C. Hepatitis B only have 10 to 20% vertical transmission. Hepatitis E have 90% of vertical transmission. So hepatitis E antigen is a marker of infectivity and also vertical transmission, but hepatitis B is only marker of infectivity. Hepatitis E is both marker for infectivity and also transmission. So now coming to drug of choice. So what is the drug of choice should be given for viral hepatitis? That is tenofovir. Tenofovir. So in the word you can see vir for virus. Okay. So tenofovir. The route of delivery is not changed due to hepatitis. Breastfeeding is also not contraindicated. So even the person can use during breastfeeding. So after delivery, if the mother remains still hepatitis surface antigen B surface antigen positive, or hepatitis B DNA is still detected in neonatal blood, what we need to do? So even after delivery, still in the mother there is hepatitis and also in the fetus hepatitis, then we need to give to the neonate, we should give active or passive immunization. We should give both active and passive, that is the live virus and dead virus immunization. That is, we'll give the hepatitis B vaccine with hepatitis B immunoglobulin, both are given. Okay, so by this we completed liver diseases in pregnancy. Next we'll start with heart diseases in pregnancy.